Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to be diving deep into something pretty intense.
Yeah.
Our listeners sent this in. Walter Bound's The Jackpot of Self, Addiction's Algorithm, Breaking the Machine to Reclaim Self. And
Wow, what a title.
yeah, and it's intense, it's poetic, and it's definitely something that's super relevant to everyone in, the world today.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I was looking at Bound's piece was this really central metaphor of the machine.
Yeah.
And it made me think about how, it's not just those kind of obvious addictions that we think of, but these broader systems, these behaviors that can really kind of, take hold of us.
Exactly. Think about the machine as maybe habits or societal pressures or even internal narratives that you just can't seem to get rid of.
Right, exactly.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to unpack how these machines are operating, maybe even in your life right now.
Really.
And how they're messing with our sense of self-worth and how we can get rid of them, whatever form they take.
Right. And I think a good place to start is that first line from Bound's piece.
Oh, yeah.
We are all addicts.
Okay, whoa.
I mean, it's pretty provocative, right?
Yeah.
What kind of greed is he getting at when he says something like that? It's such a broad statement. Does any of it ring true for you?
It's true. I don't think he's talking about just chasing a high in the traditional way.
Right.
He seems to be pointing at this deep need for external validation.
Yeah.
He's giving us all these vivid pictures of us flattening our money, our time, the things we value, and even our souls into what he calls the gaping slit of things. And it's kind of a brutal image of how we shrink ourselves.
Yeah.
Just to chase after something outside of ourselves.
And that's so key, right? Where do we put our value? Where do we think our worth comes from?
Yeah.
Bound's suggesting that we're always looking for that value, that validation from something outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we forget that we already have that worth within us.
Yeah, and it's we're blind to it.
Right.
So I think what you just said is a huge takeaway for our listeners.
Yeah.
Where are you unconsciously flattening your own values in this pursuit of external things?
Right.
And do those even line up with what you care about?
That's the question.
This takes us to Bound's metaphor of the unnatural forests.
Yeah.
So when you first read that, what kind of unnatural forests popped into your head?
Well, I think these unnatural forests are these really manufactured spaces that we live in. So immediately I think of social media, those curated feeds and just that endless scroll.
Oh, yeah.
But, it could also be that corporate ladder that we're all trying to climb. Or just advertising everywhere telling us what we need and what we should buy to be happy.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all of that.
It is. And the thing is, they're all promising us fulfillment, but they just leave us feeling so empty.
Yeah. He even mentions specifically LinkedIn likes and claps.
Oh, yeah.
And there are these tiny little gestures that seem eternal.
Right.
But they just offer this illusory harmony.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that? That ping of a notification, you get a little boost and then...
Yeah, and then it's gone.
And then you need more.
Yeah. It's a cycle.
It's a cycle that just keeps repeating.
And it's so easy to mistake those little hits for, real, genuine connection.
Exactly.
So I think Bound's point with these unnatural forests is, be careful you don't get lost in these worlds, these manufactured realities like social media. Because you're constantly chasing after something that can never really fill you up.
Right. And you're chasing it outside yourself.
Exactly. Instead of looking at the worth that you already have within you.
And you're losing yourself.
Exactly.
And I think what's so powerful about that section is this disorientation that he mentions.
Yeah.
Who is who and what is whom.
When you're in those spaces, it's so hard to tell what's real.
Yeah. Who are you when you're in those spaces?
Right.
So we're trying to find ourselves. We're navigating these unnatural forests. We're driven by this need for external approval.
Right.
And then Bound drops these traps on us.
Yeah, he does.
His lists. Career of the machine ego, the cycle marriage, the siren, our own echo.
It's quite the list.
It's a lot. Which one of these jumps out to you? How are these traps playing out in your life?
Well, I think each one of these traps represents some sort of system or pattern that we get stuck in that takes over. So let's take career, for example.
Okay.
It starts out, we have goals, we want to achieve things.
Yeah.
But then it can become this all-consuming thing where you're just chasing status or money.
Yeah.
And then your whole identity is wrapped up in your job title.
So you become your job.
Exactly. And then there's the ego trap.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think it's not just about being arrogant or boastful.
Right.
It's this deeper need to have people tell you that you're good enough, you're worthy.
You need that external validation.
Yeah, you're constantly looking outside yourself for that approval.
So if you're listening to this, think about how much of your day is spent trying to get people to like you or approve of you in your work or in your social life.
Right, that's the ego trap.
Yeah, and within these traps,
Yeah.
there's this belief that we can beat the odds.
Mm-hmm.
And Bound gives us all this imagery, like grinning characters and cartoon symbols that almost connect.
Right.
He even calls out these rigged equations with lines and graphs.
So what is it that keeps us hoping, even when everything's telling us it's rigged?
Yeah.
Like, why do we keep believing that?
What do you think?
I think it's those little wins that we get, those little moments where it seems like we're making progress.
Oh, those little hits of dopamine.
Right, exactly. And it feels like, this time, I'm going to win big.
Uh-huh. But the overall trend is not good.
Exactly. And Bound actually uses this phrase that I think is so perfect.
What is it?
He talks about hereditary lines of begetting and begetting. It's just enough success, just enough good feedback to make you think, okay, I can keep going.
To keep you hooked.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So think about, you're playing a game or even just getting feedback on social media.
Yeah.
Those little wins keep you coming back for more.
Yeah, even though the overall experience might be negative.
Exactly.
And Bound is showing us how powerful that is psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're all gamblers thinking we're about to hit the jackpot.
Right.
Which takes us to, we were talking about how we actually interact with these addictive systems.
Yeah.
And Bound says, we negotiate webs as if created by gods, supernatural and technological.
You bow down to them.
We do. We tithe to it, pray to it.
Wow.
So powerful, right?
It is.
How we're describing our relationship with these algorithms, or even like the demands of our careers.
It's like we give them so much power.
We do.
Like they're in control.
That's authority that they don't even have.
Right. Like they're gods that can give us what we want.
Whether it's likes or validation or promotions or raises.
Yeah. And we're giving them our time, our energy, even our emotional well-being.
Like an offering.
Hoping that they'll give us what we want.
It's a lot.
It's...
And then what happens? The disappointment.
Yeah.
The promised vouchers of success.
That never come.
That rarely arrive.
Right?
The paychecks that are always getting refigured by undisclosed fees and inflation.
I hate when that happens.
Like you put in all this effort, you expect a certain reward, and it's just not there. Or it's like constantly being chipped away.
Right. And that feeling that the goalposts are constantly moving?
Yes.
Or that the reward never matches the effort you put in? Like, that's something I think everyone's experienced.
I agree. It's like that expectation versus reality gap.
Exactly. And I think Bound's comparison to the casino, the church, the polling booth, and the stadium is so insightful here.
Right. And he says, in all of these places, hope enters and loss exits. And yet we return.
It's so true.
What do you think is that common thread that he's pulling out there?
I think it's that hope that we all have that something good is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's mixed with the risk that we might lose.
Yeah.
But even when we lose, we still go back for more.
So powerful.
It's like this deep human desire for more, for connection, for belonging. But it also shows how easy it is to get pulled into systems that exploit those desires.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And this takes us to a pretty heavy statement from Bone.
Yeah.
He says, the architects of these glowing, humming things know we are addicts and have faith to know we are helpless.
Wow, that's a strong accusation.
It is.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
It's definitely a cynical view, but there's truth to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about how so many things today are designed to keep us hooked.
Yeah.
Like social media, they know exactly how to get us to keep scrolling.
And they want us to keep scrolling.
Right.
It's all about engagement.
And then their whole industry is built on getting us to keep buying more and more.
Mm.
So they know our weaknesses. They know we want to feel connected and validated.
Yeah.
And sometimes they know that we just want to escape.
Right. They're playing on these basic human desires.
Exactly.
And he lists these things that we just can't resist.
Oh, yeah.
Drink to love, to sex, to ego power, to recognition, appreciation.
It's a pretty raw list.
It is. He's not holding back.
He's getting to the core of what drives us.
These really basic human needs and wants.
And he's saying that, they can be so easily manipulated.
Mm.
Or they can become these unhealthy obsessions if we're not careful.
Especially if we're looking for these things from the machine.
Right. It goes back to that idea of internal worth.
Uh-huh.
If we don't believe in ourselves, if we don't feel worthy on the inside, then we're going to keep searching for it outside
Right.
from the machine.
And from systems that don't really care about us.
Exactly.
So, we're stuck in this machine.
Yeah, it feels like it.
But then Bound shifts, and he starts talking about breaking free.
Oh, yeah.
And he tells us to be done with the machine before the machine is done with us. But he doesn't try to make it sound easy, because
It's not.
he says not even gravity can match the weight of its pull.
Right.
So why do you think it's so hard to walk away?
Even when we know it's not good for us.
Even when we know it's hurting us.
Well, those habits, those rewards, even if they don't last,
Yeah.
and that fear of missing out, like, they all keep us stuck.
It's like this huge force holding us back.
And what's interesting is that he says it needs never to seek us.
Oh, that's a good point.
Meaning that, we're choosing to be a part of it.
It's a choice.
Even if it feels like we can't help ourselves, we're still choosing to engage with the machine.
And then he says something really interesting.
Okay.
He says that God is absent from the system, but not from the eternal.
Yeah, that's deep.
What do you think that means for someone who's like really trying to find peace and get free from this harmful system?
Well, it makes me think that all this stuff, all this running around and chasing after things, those highs and lows and those superficial connections, it's all just empty.
Oh.
It's not real peace.
Right, it's not real connection.
It's just the machine.
Yeah, and so balancing that real peace, the kind that lasts,
Yeah.
it's outside of all of that.
It has to be.
It's something bigger,
Yeah.
something eternal, something maybe even spiritual.
And maybe it's about connecting with what's already inside of us.
Connecting to our values.
The truth.
And then he offers this idea of reconfiguring the machine to arrange your own design
I like that.
and changing the system by changing the symbol.
Yeah, he's telling us we can take control.
We can become the architects of our own lives.
Right, instead of being controlled by the machine.
So how would someone even begin to do that? It seems like such a huge task.
It does, but I think it starts with just becoming aware.
Aware of the machine that's operating in your life.
Yeah, and then you start making different choices.
Even small ones.
Even small ones, like anything to get you more aligned with what you want.
Yeah, with your own design. And I think that ties in really well with his emphasis on changing the understanding of the pronoun.
Right, shifting it back to you.
To the I.
Taking ownership.
What does it mean to you to be the author of your own life?
To me, it means that I get to decide.
Decide what you want.
Yeah, what's important to me. It means my worth doesn't come from likes or followers or some job title.
Yeah, you're not being controlled by the machine.
No, I get to decide what my story is.
You're writing your own story.
Yeah, and setting my own values and making choices that reflect those values.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be free.
Towards the end of this piece, Bayonne presents this idea of the jackpot.
Right.
But not like, the money kind of jackpot.
No.
He describes it as an epiphany of no place but of peace. And oh, such peace. True peace.
He's changing what we think of as winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think about peace being the real prize?
It makes sense. The real jackpot isn't the temporary high or the validation that you get from the machine. It's that deep inner peace that comes from letting go of all of that.
From escaping the machine.
And, he admits that it's not easy. Like, there's that pleasurable pain and those muffled yells of addiction.
Right.
But he's also saying that there's hope.
There is.
He talks about hearing disparate voices breaking through, and that could be our own inner voice telling us to wake up.
Yeah, or it could be, the support of real friends and family.
Exactly.
And then he brings in these really simple images.
Yeah.
Leaves in the wind, laughter from a child, your own breath.
Wow.
Like these basic things that remind us what's real.
What really matters.
They overpower the machine.
They outrun death.
They outrun death. Why do you think he does that? Why bring it back to those simple things?
Well, because that's where real connection is. It's not in the complex systems of the machine.
Right.
It's in those everyday moments, like the simple joys that are always there if we just pay attention.
If we could just turn down the volume of the machine. And then he ends with this really powerful call to action.
Oh, yeah.
Roll the reels, stop, re-roll, select what you want, damn it.
Yeah, take control.
Then he tells us to demand our own eloquent silence without volume control.
Wow.
It's about reclaiming your power.
It's about knowing what you want and going after it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your final takeaway from all of this?
I think it's that we have a choice.
A choice.
Yeah, we can be swept away by the algorithms, by everyone else's expectations, by all the noise.
Yeah.
Or we can choose something different.
We can choose peace.
Yes, and that eloquent silence that's about knowing yourself and feeling confident in who you are without needing anyone else's approval.
Yeah, without having to shout to be heard.
You have your own quiet power.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bound's work,
Mm-hmm.
the big takeaway for me is this.
Yeah.
These systems are powerful,
They are?
but we don't have to be controlled by them.
We have a choice.
It all starts with awareness.
Recognizing the machines that are running our lives.
Yeah. And then taking action.
Making conscious choices.
So we leave you, our listeners, with this challenge.
Okay, I like this.
To find your own eloquent silence. To be the author of your own story.
And to break free from any system that's trying to control you.
Whether it's a plantation corporation or church, he says.
Wow.
So think about this. What machine in your life needs to be examined? And what needs to change?
Great question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, this was intense.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.